Welcome to Behind the Badge. This podcast aims to improve the health and well-being of frontline workers. Each episode features candid conversations with former and current frontline community members and subject matter experts. Join us as we explore the unique nature of serving in high-risk roles, sharing inspiring stories of resilience, strategies, and resources. We are not qualified health professionals, nor are we aligned with any organization. The opinions expressed in the podcast are solely our own. Additionally, the content may evoke strong emotional responses for some. Listener discretion is advised.
I don't wanna promise that we have an answer, and I don't wanna promise that we know the way. I just wanna bury the guilt of the nature like a tidal
Good everyone, my name's Josh. As always, today I'm joined by Jace. How are you, mate?
Good, thank you, mate. How are you?
Very, very good.
Good.
Today, our guest is the founder and director of the non-for-profit organisation, the Shaka Project. For those that don't know, the Shaka Project aims to ignite the conversation and reduce stigma associated with mental health. The Shaka Project aims to do this through the sales of its merchandise or conversation starters, events and presentations in schools, clubs and workplaces. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce Shaun Phillip.
Hey guys, how you
Thanks,
going?
Sean. Good,
Thanks
mate.
for having me.
Pleasure.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for coming, mate.
No drama. Pleasure is all ours, mate. We might kick off maybe at the start of your timeline, if we can sort of get a bit of your background, a little bit about yourself and what led you, I guess, into the Shaka Project.
Yeah, for sure. So I suppose my story and the Shaka story starts when I was about 12 years old, and I was just a sort of a normal kid. You know, I had a great family, older brother, mum and dad. Everything was pretty sweet. Just living down in Victoria, in freezing cold Victoria, just trying to get through. And I started to, you know, sort of see a bit of a change in my dad. I started to see a dad that, you know, I really knew and understood as a 12-year-old as being, you know, my hero and someone that's always there for me and someone that's, you know, my rock and best friend and all these different things. And I started to see this bit of a shift and a change in dad. And one day he sat my brother and I down and he looked us both in the eyes and he said, "Oh, look, Dad needs to tell you something." And as a 12-year-old, I was pretty nervous. So I thought that either I was in trouble or I was going to lose my dad. And he looked at us both and he said, "Dad's sick." And you know, again, as a 12-year-old, when it came to illnesses and things that I knew that could take people away from me, I knew two things, and that was cancer and stroke. Those are things that took family members, and when he started to tell us that he was sick, you know, these were the two things that popped straight up. You know, they came straight to me, and I was so scared. I just thought, okay, I'm going to lose my dad. And he continued to talk to us, and he said, "Dad's got this thing. It's called depression, and it's something that it's not your fault. It's not your brother's fault. It's not mum's fault. It's not even dad's fault. It's something that I've got, and it's something that I'm seeing a doctor about. It's something that I'm taking some special medication about." And he said, "It's not going to take me." And that conversation was, at the time, again, as a 12-year-old, it was something that it was a pretty scary conversation to start off with. But when I heard those words, that it's not going to take me, I knew
relief.
that, yeah, a huge sense of relief. And I knew that, okay, this isn't that thing called cancer that took this person, and a stroke that took my grandfather. And I sort of just, you know, forgot about it. You know, it went in one ear and out the other. As a 12-year-old, I sort of just wanted to get on with life. And once Dad said that he's going to be okay, I thought, okay, it's fine. Let's move on. So over the next few years, I started to see what this thing called depression was really doing to him. And he would constantly come back to that. There would be weekends where I wouldn't see my father. There'd be days where I'd talk to him and he just simply couldn't talk back, and he was so sad and he was so upset, and he was a shell of the father that I knew, really. And this was something that I really started to notice pretty quickly from after he told us, and it just kept coming back to this thing that he spoke to us about, this depression thing. And I knew that, okay, so it's going to be okay. He's going to go see a doctor, and soon he'll be back. He'll be fine. He'll be better. And once he started to go and see a doctor, and I knew that he was on some medication, and my mum explained to me that sometimes he's going to be really good, sometimes he may not be a great dad, sometimes he may not be here. And I started to really expect that. Okay, this is that thing called depression, and I started to build this hatred towards this thing. This mental health, this depression, because it was taking away my father. Why wasn't he doing this? Why couldn't we hang out like we used to? And why was he traveling so much and going away so much, and all these different things. And he was always open about it. He was always honest about it. So was my mother. Unfortunately, it destroyed their marriage. So that was a really big factor in what really highlighted this issue for me as well, is that this depression thing caused my parents to split up, which caused more anger for me. I had this hatred for this thing that I didn't fully understand at that age, but I could see the destruction it was having, not only on my father, but now my mother, and obviously her family as well. So although through this I could see this, and I could understand what was happening, it was still very, very open in the household. We were always talking about it. We were always discussing it, and Dad was always very, very open around talking about his mental health and saying, look, this is about my emotions and my feelings and these things that have really brought me to where I am and to this illness. And once again, I was probably 13, 14 at this stage, I just wanted to do life, get through, and hope everything was going to sort out. And I started to experience my own feelings, my own emotions, a lot of anxiety around school, around a lot of social anxiety, a lot of feelings of loneliness and self-doubt and self-worth was really, really lacking. And I genuinely, at a very, very young age, started to hate myself and hate my life and question things. And suicidal ideation went through my mind at a very, very young age. And an amazing thing happened when these things came into my life. And that amazing thing is that when they came in and they started to introduce themselves to me, I was able to identify it really, really fast. I was able to say, hey, this is what Dad's got.
Do you think that was contributed by your dad having those open conversations?
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the things with PTSD is that for those who know about it and have knowledge on it, when it happens, the fear is not as great as all of a sudden it lands on their doorstep one day and they're struck by this PTSD.
For sure.
I think your dad's conversations early in your childhood. I mean, how old would your dad have been at that time?
Oh, he would have been mid-50s then.
So again, the stigma back then about mental health was huge, I think. Like, we still weren't talking about it openly. Did your dad have a mentor? Or as in, was someone that sort of figure to your dad to be able to talk openly?
Yeah, no, there wasn't. I think it was just my dad's a very, very loving person, and he, I think he just saw an opportunity there to say, like, I'm gonna open up here. I'm gonna be honest. And again, this was 16 years ago now. You're right. The mental health conversation was almost non-existent.
Yeah.
So it was something that not a lot of people would have done. And there's so many other factors to it too. There's the fact that the mental health conversation is around, but it's being vulnerable to your kids. I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and some of the hardest things I've ever done being a father is saying, hey, I struggle sometimes. She looks at me like I'm Superman. Like, that'll fix it. That'll get it done. Dad's the strongest man in the world. And sometimes you have to say, sometimes I'm not strong, and that's really, really hard. So for him to be able to do that again 16 years ago, I consider myself as one of the lucky ones, because it was able to show me that as a young man, as a young boy, I was able to identify it. And then secondly, I was able to go and seek some support because I knew that he was. I was able to go and seek some medication because I knew he was. And at the age of 15, I was diagnosed with chronic depression, and although it was scary, and it was essentially the start of my mental health journey. And anyone that's ever had any sort of mental health knows that it's not as easy as just jumping onto some medication and maybe talking to someone. It doesn't go away.
No.
So it's definitely a journey, and that was the start of mine. But I had a really massive what would you call it? Almost a
leg up.
A leg up, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. That I knew, okay, there's no stigma here, because my dad's, for the last couple of years, he's shown me what this thing is. He's made it real, and I think if something's real, it's actionable. So I consider myself one of the lucky ones when it comes to that.
100%. He's like leading by example, really.
100%.
You know,
Yeah.
and you had a pathway there that you knew that he was already following.
Yep.
That's very, very lucky to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what a massive turn that would have been if he hadn't have said anything, because that was the culture back then.
Yep.
I mean, you see the whole, it's not weak to speak, or it ain't weak to speak now. But back then, I mean,
Yep.
I know my father, he'll just look serious at sometimes. Oh God, your dad's angry. No, he's not. He's just a deep thinker.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's moments where he probably want to speak, but his culture was you didn't really talk about it back then.
Exactly right. Yep.
So the irony, I guess, of it is your dad's like suffering something that everyone deems as a weakness, but yet so brave to be able to, like Josh said, lay that platform,
Yep.
which you've now passed on to your daughter.
Well, yeah,
You know,
exactly
to be
right.
able to speak openly and
Yep.
so
Yep,
Yeah.
and I think that's been a leading factor in getting into this space too, because again, as I said before, the mental health journey that I started when I was 15 certainly hasn't stopped. There's been huge ups, there's been massive downs. It's always been part of my life. Suicide, self-harm's always been part of my life since that journey started. But I want to use the advantage that I had, and I'm able to now speak very, very open and vulnerable, and I know that it's really hard. It's one of the hardest things, especially young males and men, to do. And I think I can use that advantage to hopefully teach and inspire people to open up and essentially carry on dad's message for sure.
100%.
excellent.
So, 15, you said you started going down that path, had that diagnosis. Where to from there for you? Were you starting to go into that management sort of phase?
Yeah, look, it was definitely, I was on medication reasonably early, and I at that stage I started to get into my teenage years, where I really stepped up the let's go have some I thought at the time, let's go have some fun. So I dived into a lot of alcohol. I dived into a lot of drugs, and it was a time in my life where I had some great mates. I had some great family and people around me, and I wasn't the best kid at school. I loved school purely for my mates, and I was one of those students. And I didn't know at the time that I can just have this medication and this will keep it at bay. I didn't understand that the alcohol that I was having every weekend and the drugs I was having every weekend and the situations I was putting myself in was actually having a massive detrimental effect to that medication, to the support I was getting, and to the entire issue that I was experiencing around my own mental health. So that's something that I didn't get introduced to. I was lucky enough to be introduced to the conversation, but through no fault of my own, did my parents say, "Hey, alcohol and drugs have a extremely poor correlation towards your mental health." Again, 16 years ago, not a whole lot of people knew that. So unfortunately, that took a massive load onto my mental health journey throughout that time, and that probably led into my early 20s too. So those things were a massive part of my life, and that led me to many times where I had mental health breakdowns, suicide attempts throughout the 16 to 22 years of age, and had almost lasting effect even to this day. I took 2.5 years off alcohol just last year, and I thought that it was a really a powerful 2.5 years for me, and I started to almost make a promise to myself that, all right, I'm going to be able to face alcohol again and not go back to using it and abusing it. And within 3 months, I was essentially doing it again too. So I've now had to completely cut alcohol from my life, and that's been the best thing I've ever done. But again, these are things that unfortunately we don't talk about, and these are things that at the Shaka Project we really want to talk about. We want to be able to have those conversations, especially with young kids, to say it's okay to go and socialise and have a drink and party and experience the youth and all those different things. But let's just highlight the direct correlation between mental health, ill mental health, suicide in Australia when it comes to these things. So that's a massive part of what we do.
Through that period, say 16 to 22, did you tell your mates?
I did, and I had a great support from a few mates. There was a lot of mates I can think of right now that they would call me a pussy and he's sensitive and he's always upset, he's always crying and all these different things. And once again, at the time, I started to believe those things. I started to believe, and I started to wonder, I'm like, why are people reacting like this? Like, this is normal. Feelings are normal. Emotions are normal. Why are my mates calling me pussies? Why are my mates saying that I'm too emotional and too this and too that and too sensitive? And, that was really, really tough for me because I loved my mates and I wanted to keep my mates and be able to open up. So there was a selective few that I could open up a little bit more, but there was definitely a lot of kickback for sure. And even to this day, I think when I started the project, those mates that back in the day were, calling me pussies and sensitive and all that sort of stuff, it's taken the project, it's taken a few years for them to almost open up to it and say, hey, look, we were probably wrong back then. And I can't blame them. We were 16, 17. Again, the conversation was non-existent. They weren't lucky enough to have that conversation that I had with my father.
I was going to say, obviously they didn't have that conversation.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's great to look back in things in hindsight and all that sort of stuff too. But it's definitely changed now. I've got people that I can call right now in tears and say, right, can we go have a coffee and have a chat, and it's there's no stigma, there's no you're a pussy, there's no harden up, any of that. You can just have the conversations.
But obviously you exude that trust, because that's a hard conversation to ring up somebody and say, hey, I'm really, really struggling here. That's
the toughest.
That's the part we need to break, is allowing people to do that. I think is the
absolutely
important part. So yeah,
it's tricky. We're all too happy to lend the hand, but it's sometimes harder to ask for that hand.
Yep.
And being on that vulnerable side and going, hey, can I get some help? Can I have a chat or whatever, like you said?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So moving on through that period, 16 to 22.
That's probably through to 22, yeah.
So obviously left school. Did you finish?
I finished school. Yeah, finished school. And then essentially straight from school, I started my first business, which was personal training. And that led me essentially working full time. I didn't do a gap year. One of my biggest regrets, I didn't do any travelling in that first year after high school. I just got straight into work. And throughout this period and starting my own business at the age of 18 was great. It was the best thing that I could have done, but also for my mental health, it was really tough. Anyone that's ever started a business knows that it's really hard. And when you're 18 and know absolutely nothing and didn't really pay much attention at school, you make it harder for yourself. So that was really, really tough. And, it was a constant battle with myself. I was so passionate about personal training, and my mates were off, doing trades or in the mines and making really good money, and I'm scraping it together to buy food, because I've got overheads and you're trying to start a business and start something. So that had a really big detrimental effect on my mental health as well. And I suppose I added all these marbles to my jar, that was my life. It was the stress of work, financial stress. I was still drinking heavily. I wasn't doing drugs as much, but they were still part of my life. I was in a few, pretty hard relationships, and again, I was a young kid. I made a lot of mistakes, so there was a lot of these things that were still building up, and I almost got to the stage where I was 21, and I almost got really arrogant about this mental health thing. I thought, I don't need medication anymore. I was heavily into the gym, so I bulked up a fair bit. I felt like I was pretty strong physically, and I thought that'll just go to my brain and help out everything else, which doesn't work. So I got a little bit arrogant, and I got a little bit cocky around my own mental health, and thought, I'm fine now, I'm good, I'm cured, and then it just came knocking, and it came knocking really hard, and that was probably one of the hardest periods, after between sort of the ages of 20 and 24 is where I had a lot of suicide attempts. A lot of moments where I, just really didn't want to be here anymore, and wanted to escape everything that had happened and everything that I'd been through. And although I was able to, speak about it, and I felt like I could speak about it, I got to the point I just didn't want to. I just thought, no, it would just be easier for me to go. And painting a picture of my life at that point, if you were sort of from the outside, like most people, we're all pretty good actors. I painted a really amazing picture. I got to the point where my business was going really well, so I bought a brand new boat, I bought a brand new car, everything was flashy, everything was good, and I was just doing it because I was just so sad. I was just trying to make myself happier. I thought, well, this will work, new boat will work, new car will work, this will work, and it just didn't.
Works for a short time, and then
absolutely, yep. It's that spike, and then it's no, I'm still sad.
So just going back about that conversation, you said, those suicide thoughts, and what pulled you through that? Because that's a fairly dark time in your life when you get to that point.
Yeah.
Talk about rock bottom. What was the thing that made you go, what, I want to be here. I want to get through this.
Yeah, it's really, really hard one to answer, because there was a few times I can think of where there was nothing. There was nothing that could pull me through. There was one time where my best friend quite literally walked in the door and just said, "What the fuck are you doing?" Wow. And it was essentially, she walked in and saved my life. There was another time where I was so certain, and I was so ready, and everything was set up, and it simply just didn't work. I talk about that story a hell of a lot, because I think it was a sign for me. It was something that this meant something. This meant that I probably need to hang around and see what this means. And then a couple of years later, my daughter was born, and I was able to see what it meant to stick around. So that's a big motivator for me. But when I look at it now, I haven't been in that stage. We call it crisis mode or crisis stage. And the crisis mode is essentially where somebody has made a decision. Somebody is okay with the thought of either self-harm or suicide. And, a really scary part of this crisis mode is that thousands of people right now, as us three sit here right now, are in this mode. And that's what breaks my heart. That's what scares me. We're a week away from Christmas.
Seems to be a hard time.
Horrible time.
Yeah.
It's through statistics we can see that Christmas and Christmas Day is one of the main days that we lose people, and the week before and after. So it's a really, really scary time, and my own personal crisis mode, I haven't been in that for probably about 2.5 years. And you might look at that and think, oh, that was only 2.5 years ago, but that's a huge win. That's a huge win for someone that has experienced many, many crisis modes. And, for some people, it could be, I haven't thought about it for a week. And that is incredible. That's what we applaud in this industry and in the prevention space. There's some people that say, I haven't thought about it in 3 or 4 days. And we hug them, we congratulate them, because it's such a scary thing. And sometimes it's something that just continues to attack people's lives, and that thought and that understanding and that idea of self-harm and suicide is something that is so prevalent in a lot of people's lives too. So I'm very, very proud of the 2.5 years, and I know that I've got my processes that if I can feel myself getting to that stage, I've got my own personal processes. It's different with everyone. Some people say, all right, well, let's focus on this. Let's go into maybe a mental health ward and stay there for a week, or a rehabilitation centre. Many, many people do that. Some people, it's all very, very different. So, I'm pretty proud of the last 2.5 years, and I try and encourage people to take those wins. Just like someone, if they were a couple of weeks clean of alcohol and drugs, that's a huge win. We should be proud. Same thing when it comes to this.
It's a big effort.
Yeah,
It sounds like coming from the space that you were in to then be able to say that, it sounds like, a very, very big win, like you say. But touching back on those crisis points, and you said that there was a number of them, did they vary in length and intensity and things like that? Or was it always a similar thing for you? It's like, oh, here we go again, and this happens and it lasts this long? Or was it more random?
Yeah, definitely varied. And I can think back to when I was, I think it might have been 19 or 20, and that's probably when I had my really first long one, and that felt like it was 5 or 6 months. And throughout that period, I was still working. I was still doing all of my positive mental health practices. I was training. I was doing all these things. And I was almost just putting it away, and I didn't know what this crisis mode was. I've been able to identify it now, but at the age of 18 or 19, I think it might have been, I couldn't identify it. So I knew that I was feeling pretty crap. I knew that I was shit. I knew that I had these thoughts, but I didn't identify that I was actually in a really, really dangerous period. And then when I look back at my last one, I had a few things go on in my personal life, and I essentially told myself, right, I'll buckle up because this one's going to be shit. And it was, it probably lasted over a year. And when I say that it lasted a year, it doesn't mean I wake up and think of this, but it was a good year of right, I'm going to have to go through a lot of shit here with my brain, with my head, and work this out. And it might get good for 3 or 4 days, and then it might get really bad for a few more days. And because I was able to identify that, it does, again, personally, it does make it easier. But it's sometimes it's really bloody tough. You might have 3 days which are absolutely incredible. You're on top of the world, you're feeling good, and then you've got 4 days or 1 day even that essentially wipes out those 3 good days. And one of my favourite sayings is this can't say it, it's so good I can't say it. This too shall pass. And this is something that I say to myself all the time. And it's in relation to not only the bad times, but also the good times. And I say it in a positive way. I don't say it in this is good, it's going to turn shit. I don't say it in that way. I say it in, okay, I'm having a really good couple of days. It will pass, and that's okay. But let's try and keep up the positive stuff that I can do. So I've had 4 days. I've been able to get to the gym. I've been able to see some family that's been really good. Right, what can I do to allow these things to continue to tick over in a positive way? I know that this thing is something that negatively impacts my mental health, so I'm going to avoid that as much as I possibly can. And then when I get into a really bad state, it's the opposite. Okay, right, it's bad right now. This too shall pass. What can I do? Right, these are my positive things. Let's focus a little bit on that. Don't go hell to leather, but just do little things that you can, and let's get back on top. And then, but just having that awareness, I think, is really good. Personally for me, it's it's almost a lifesaver, you know, because when I'm in those bad stages, I can think, right, this will pass. It'll take some time. Maybe it'll take overnight. Maybe it'll take a week. But there will be a point where I'm like, oh, I'm feeling so good right now. But then reminding yourself that you've got to keep up, you know, it's like going to the gym. You can't go to the gym for 6 months, put on heaps of muscle, and then stop and then expect it to hang around. So it's the same thing when it comes to mental fitness.
You know, keep working.
Absolutely.
And, you know, obviously you've built that awareness within yourself, and then what's positive, what's negative, all of those great things through experience. And I guess the hope is that people find these things out about themselves before, you know, an attempt turns into a successful attempt, or, you know, we hope that you would find out those positive mental health practices and put those things in place
For sure.
early. And I guess in lieu of that, it's conversations and education and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that you obviously privy to with your old man as well.
Yes. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think education is the most underrated thing, you know, in the world when it comes to everything. You know, education around, especially this space, is, I think, you know, trying to give a better understanding around what mental health is. You know, a lot of people, if we wrote down mental health on a piece of paper and say, you know, okay, write what mental health is, they'll say depression, anxiety, PTSD, these sorts of things, which absolutely is mental health. But it is such a wide range of things that we can talk about when it comes to mental health. And we can talk about positive mental health and the effect that speaking about these things has on the negative impacts of mental health as well too. So I think the education around, especially when we talk about crisis mode, in the workshops that I present, I talk about crisis mode for probably 30 minutes. And it's really uncomfortable, 30 minutes. It's probably the hardest 30 minutes of the entire presentation. But I think it's really important because I know that when I talk about it, there's always, you know, a few people in the crowd that think, oh, I recognise that. You know, I've been in that moment. Now, they may have been in there once. They may have been in there for, you know, a few weeks, a few months, a couple of years. They might have had like a lifetime full of it. They may have someone in their life that they recognise this for. Once they recognise it, once something becomes real, it becomes easier to talk about. Because a lot of people that experience this crisis mode or suicidal ideation, one of the scariest things is going to someone and saying, I'm thinking about this. Because the expected reply is, what the fuck? What do you mean you're thinking about that? You know, that's crazy. That's stupid. Why would you do that? You know, you got so many people that love you and this and that. And so people aren't talking about it. So if we talk about it and we normalise it and think, holy crap, I'm not the only one who thought like that. Maybe this thing that I have experienced and have thought about is real. I can go talk about it. I can go and seek some support, and I think that's really powerful. Just to make it real, and everything that's real is actionable, and by action that is seeking support, destigmatizing it, these types of things.
And again, like you go back in time, how often would you hear someone sitting in a forum, whether it be podcast or talk show, whatever, talking about thoughts of suicide? No one spoke about it.
Yeah.
So for those who experience or feel that way, there's no out, really.
Absolutely.
But having you here talking about, you know, and let's make it clear, you've got to work damn hard.
Yep.
To get through those, you know, those periods that you talk about. You work extremely hard about the, you know, the positives and the favourite saying that you use. What was that again? This shall pass.
This too shall pass. Yeah.
And that, you know, and I don't think, I think knowing that people can hear that and go, okay, all right, I've thought about it now. It's in me somewhere, but I can do something about that.
Yep.
Is incredible. And I think we're going to get a lot more people approaching people like you and saying, hey, listen, I'm experiencing that road that you possibly drove down once. How can you give me help, you know?
For sure.
Which is, to me, that's, you know, it's groundbreaking to get someone, because like I said, you never heard about it.
Yep.
You knew people were struggling.
Yep.
But you never thought that they were thinking those things.
Yeah. Yep. One of the, you know, I've been fortunate enough to I've probably delivered to maybe 350 events over the last 2 years, and the most common thing that people say to me when they come up to me after I present, the most common thing every single place I've been is, thanks for that, I've been there.
Wow.
I've been there. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm.
And, when I hear that, I just think, like there are so many people out there that have been there, and that either haven't talked about it, whether they have or haven't, but, it just shows just how big an issue this is, and it normalises it too. And another thing that, I see that as vulnerability when somebody comes to me and say, hey, mate, I've been there. What that does to me is, because when I'm speaking about it, it's scary. Even though I do it for a living, it's still scary because I think these people are going to think I'm fucking nuts. But when this person comes up to me and says, mate, I've been there, that makes me feel really good. That makes me feel less alone. And there's nothing better than feeling like somebody else has got your back, especially when it comes to these things too. So that's the power of conversation, the power of education, and the power of vulnerability as well.
And for the listeners, I mean, what do you stand, 6 foot something?
6'8". No, I'm not. I'd like to be. I think I'm just on 6 foot.
6 foot, tattoos, and so I think having you standing up in front of a room talking about that would make a huge difference, a positive difference.
Yep.
That it's that. Oh, we talked about it before we come on air about the effect that you would have standing up there in a suit, opposed to you walking in as you would off the street, and this is me, this is what you're going to get, is a massive 100%. Difference.
Yeah, and that's authenticity and authenticity around this conversation is so important. Being open, authentic, vulnerable when it comes to these things is we're playing with people's emotions, feelings, their life. If people have experienced that ideation, we have to be real. We have to be authentic, and again, we present to a lot of schools, and if I stood up and wearing a suit, I always say the only place I wear a suit is a wedding, and I'll probably take it off halfway through. So it's Look, I think it's really important to do that, and we're probably a very, very different and unique charity, and kind of company that works in this industry. Our social media. If we had some of the other charities boards looking at our social media, they'd have a fit. My favourite post is to put up just "you fucking matter," and real stuff like that.
But that's powerful.
That's what I would want to see if I'm scrolling and really struggling. I would want to see this is what we're doing, and this is no hate towards any of the other organisations or charities. They're all doing a great job. It's that's our passion, is to stay authentic, and I want to be able to target the person that is the footy coach from regional New South Wales, or the mum that's struggling with she's a single mum of 2 kids and she's really struggling, and for them to see something real. We know you're struggling, we see you, please seek support. You matter, all these different things too. So if you can be real and authentic, and really trying to sort of come down to everybody else's level, and not put something out there that's just that sort of typical this and that, I think it has a really positive effect on people.
Definitely resonates
I think
quite well.
People have got pretty good bullshit meters.
Yes,
and they can tell straight up, and especially kids too. You
100%.
you said you present to a lot of schools, and kids have got the best bullshit meters going.
100%. Kids are smarter than us sometimes. Honestly, they see bullshit, and they see someone that's real, and they pick it up and they won't hold back.
No. I think you said something before, and it has so much power to it, in the fact that if someone's come up to you after a presentation and said, I know exactly what you mean, I've been there, to me that's saying that now I know a bit more about it, I'm prepared, or I want to change, or I want to get better. So whether you believe it or not, you've changed so many people's lives just in that short conversation of, making them feel like they can come out now and say, I've been there, and now there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Yep. Where previously I was walking down a very long, dark tunnel with no,
and probably walking down it alone too.
Most definitely.
Yep.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a personal goal of mine is to, when I do, whether it be presentations or social media or even podcasts, things like this, is to just give one person permission to talk. So, I've been there before where I've been really, really struggling, and all I needed is for something to say what you're experiencing matters. A big issue with a lot of people is that we've got all these things going on in our minds, and we constantly say, "Oh, it's not that important." Oh, it's somebody has it worse. That's my least favourite saying. And a big part of my message is that whatever it is, whether you think it's really small and insignificant or not important, it absolutely matters, whatever it is. And, if we can give people the permission to say, all right, what I'm experiencing does matter, it's important enough to talk about, to seek support about if we need to, or simply talk to a partner or a loved one or a work colleague, whatever it is, and give them that permission. I think that permission is something to just ignite the conversation, start a conversation that could possibly open up some really positive and maybe life-saving conversations too.
And I think some of the education also needs to be focused on those people who are at the receiving end, like, whoever you can confide in and have trust in, you go to that person and say, hey, I'm not feeling so great. And sometimes that's a hard conversation to hear someone else, and I don't know what to say, or, and that in itself, I think there needs to be a little bit more education about that. And I think if that person can be authentic and genuine as they would deal with that the way they would, not like, let's lie down and talk about this. And, people don't want to hear that sometimes if it doesn't sort of resonate with what's going on with them. So, there certainly needs to be a little bit more education in that space.
Yeah, and that's something that we talk a lot about with our workshops. Is we all know, are you okay today?
Yep.
And the biggest question we get on that day is, okay, firstly, if I ask it and somebody says no, what do I do? And if somebody asks me and I am not okay, how do I know that this is someone I can speak to and it's authentic? And we talk a lot about three things. The first thing being around this question about checking in with a friend. First thing is that the first person we check in with is ourselves. That we need to put ourselves first. I use the metaphor of, we've been in an aeroplane before where, if they go through the safety instructions and they say, if oxygen masks fall and you're travelling with kids, put them on yourself before you put them on your kids. First time I heard that with my daughter, I thought, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
like,
I was exactly the same. I was like, no underwear.
Her first, like, I don't, whatever. And then I realised pretty quick, I'm like, okay, if I can't breathe, I can't save her. She's gone. So, and it's the same thing with mental health. So, if I'm really, really struggling, I'm going through my own experiences, and I know that somebody else is, and it's a beautiful act for wanting to go and check that person. You must put yourself first, and it's not selfish to do that.
Not at all.
And that's when we get into the conversation with other people. The second thing is validation. Validation, I spoke earlier, I think we were off air, about vulnerability being my favourite word. Validation is my second favourite word. I'm going to get it tattooed on me as well. And validation is essentially the key to continuing a conversation. So, for example, Josh, if you come to me, mate, and said, and we were mates for 15 years, and you said, oh, Shaun, can we sit down and have a chat? And you said to me, look, I've just broken up with a partner and I'm really, really struggling with it. It's really hard. And work is, it's horrible, and I'm hating it. Now, if I turn around, and this is a reasonably common conversation, especially with blokes, I said, mate, you're only with her for 6 months. And, plenty more fish in the sea, jump on Bumble, jump on a Hinge, you'll be all right.
Yep.
And work, you've got a better job than me. Some people don't have jobs, mate. Like, come on, you're earning good money, this and that. Now, what I'm doing there is I'm doing a couple of things. The first thing I'm saying is, hey, mate, your shit doesn't matter.
Yep.
It's not important enough. You're crazy. Not important enough to talk about, not important enough to seek support about, not important enough to stress you out, not important enough to, even though you're driving home in tears from work because you hate it that much, you're crazy for doing that. The second thing I'm doing, and this is a really dangerous part, is I'm saying, hey, mate, if you are ever in that crisis mode, don't you dare come to me.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you what you
Yeah.
need or what you want.
I don't care. None of your shit could ever be important enough. So if we change that conversation around and say, hey, mate, look, I'm really sorry about the breakup. Talk to me about it. You know, don't try and fix it. Just say, like, oh, can you do this? Can you do this? No, just say, talk to me about it. What happened? You know, allow them that space. And breakups suck. We all know it. Everyone's been through bad relationships. Let's talk about it. And, you know, work. What is it about work? Talk to me. Talk about what's going on. Can you speak to a manager? Can we? What is it about we can fix? And simple things like that, giving validation and saying what you're experiencing absolutely matters, gives them permission to say, right, this is real. Again, we come back to that. This thing's real, and what's real is actionable. I can go and talk about this too. So, those are probably two things that we really try and educate people on. Is that firstly, you first. Secondly, is validation. And then to add on to that is the idea that you don't have to fix it. You know, we don't have to understand what everybody else is experiencing. I could be having an amazing relationship, an amazing job. It doesn't mean that what Josh is going through isn't important. And it doesn't mean that I have to try and understand it.
Or fix it.
Or fix it, exactly right. So I did a bit of a personal anecdote with this is that a couple of years ago, I was having a rough week. I wasn't in that crisis mode or anything. I was having a rough week, and I sent a big text message to my mum and to my dad. And my mum's a beautiful woman, but she's a fixer, just like most mums are.
Yep.
And she texted me back saying, right, Shaun, you need to do this. You need to get back to this, get back to the gym, focus on this, focus on that. I read it, stressed me the hell out. I was like, oh my God, this makes it worse. And my dad replied 3 hours later, as dads do. And he replied with 3 words. And all those 3 words was, I get it. That's all he said. Now, not taking away what mum did. You know, she did an amazing job. But the effect that dad's message had, because when I was writing that message out, you know, I was thinking in my head, like a lot of us do, oh, I'm crazy. I'm losing it. You know, what the fuck's wrong with me? And then as soon as you said, I get it, I was like, right, it's real. And again, something real is actionable. And when I was able to say, right, this is real, what I'm experiencing, I'm not going crazy, I'm not losing my mind, I was able to go back to mum's message and start to tick off the list. So they're working really well together. So that's the validation around that conversation and what somebody's experiencing is so important. And we're all very, very guilty of it. You know, we've been getting to work. Oh, hey, mate, how's your weekend? Oh, yeah, it's all right. Like, no, yeah, mine was all right. And we sort of move on. You know, we're all guilty of that. We're all guilty of just sort of putting a comment under the table. And that's sort of what we try and teach, is like listen for those things and say, what happened? Is everything okay? Like, do you want to talk about it more? And, you know, again, if they bring it up and say, oh, yeah, I had a fight with my partner, don't be that person that say, you're better, mate. Yeah, good sleeping, you know, give her space, this and that. And again, that's conversations that many of us had.
Or the other thing I hear is if someone's talking and, oh, this is going on. Yeah, mate, had that happen to me.
Yeah, exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, but I had it, you know, where this, and there's going, oh,
yep.
This is not a competition, mate.
Exactly right.
I'm trying to pull my heart out here.
100%. Yeah. It's a big part of the conversation too. Is it's almost a lot of people do it to try and, you know, covertly make them feel better. They don't know they're doing it.
Exactly.
They're like, oh, if I, you know, make it this worse, their thing seems better. Yeah. And again, most of the time, it's not something that people do on purpose, but it's a lot of people do it. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, I had that, but it was this bad, and I've got to do this tomorrow, and you're like, okay, but again, my shit still matters. So again, it's just about thinking about the conversation, and it's really hard. I catch myself, you know, sometimes having to go, oh, hang on, no, be careful what you're saying here. I was having a conversation with my mum just 2 nights ago, and she was telling me about work, and my first reaction was to be like, oh, why don't you just do that? And now I remembered, I'm like, no, I've got no idea what she's doing at work. I have no idea what this issue is. So let's just, well, what do you mean? What does that mean? Yep. What is it about this that you're struggling with, and just allowing it to vent? So it's not an easy thing to do, but if we put a little bit of effort in, we can start to do it.
The other thing too, and we've talked with previous guests on the show, is there's a fear behind giving someone advice too. Like, if I tell this person to do this, am I going to make the situation worse? So in some cases, people go, you know what, I'm best not to say anything.
Mm.
But I spoke to a psychologist once about this, and simple words were to me, just said, just sit and be present.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's all it takes, is someone to sit and listen to the whole story. Sometimes that's all that person wants, is to be able to get stuff off their chest and listen. And then the other thing that he added onto that was, if someone's having a really, really bad time, he said his words sometimes are, well, that must be very painful.
Mm.
And it's like, normally I would be afraid to say that, because I think now I've almost given them reason to think, oh shit, this is a bad situation. But it works on the opposite effect. It's
absolutely.
like,
It's a validation.
Exactly right.
Validating,
So,
and then going, yeah, it is painful.
Yeah.
And that does
Someone
give them that
understands.
realness. Yeah, absolutely. And 2 ears, 1 heart is something that we say a lot too, and that sometimes is the best thing we can do, is simply sit there and just allow them to speak. And some of the best, psychology sessions that I've ever had, my psychologist said, "Hey mate, how you going?" And that's all he said for an hour. And he's like, "Okay, I'll see you next week." And that's essentially all he said. And I walk out and go, "Yeah, that was awesome," because I was just able to talk the whole time. So it's a super powerful thing we can do, is simply be there, ensure that we're in a safe space, that the person that we're speaking to trust us and we trust them as well. It's always really important, and then it can really flourish from there.
Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah, just provide that space.
Absolutely.
So that safe space.
Yep.
Because that person opening up to you, that might be the first time that they've voiced some of that stuff that's been rattling around in their head for
Definitely
however long.
Long time.
Yeah. And that's all they need, is just to dump it out, get it out of their mouth, out of their head, out of their mouth, and they just want someone to listen.
Absolutely. Yep.
Let's shift focus a little bit. Let's talk about the Shaka Project. When did that come about? Why did that come about? And what's it all about?
Yeah, so it first started back in 2019, and I essentially started as a bit of a passion project, and I just wanted more blokes essentially to speak about mental health and to ignite the conversation around mental health. And I was always curious about what I could do. And with my personal training business, we did a lot of fundraisers. Essentially, all the fundraisers we ever did was for mental health. And, I always wanted to do something in the space. And again, back then I was very personally knowledgeable around mental health and suicide. But I was always almost blissfully ignorant around just how big of an impact this was having on Australia. I was sort of in my own little bubble, and I thought, well, this has affected me. It's affected my dad. I know a few other people, and I kind of thought, that's it. And then when I started this project, I thought, okay, we're going to create T-shirts, and essentially, if you wear this T-shirt, you are giving other people a sign that you have empathy and understanding for mental health. That if I see you walking down the street, I know that that's somebody I can go and have a chat to, and have a discussion with. I'm going to feel like I'm in a safe space. So started that. That my partner at the time was super pissed, because I essentially spent our last $1,500 on these T-shirts, and I remember we actually just got back from a holiday in Cairns, and I launched it, and it was just let's launch this and see what happens. And within 24 hours, we had sold out of everything, all of our T-shirts, all of our singlets. We went, quotation viral on Facebook. This was back in 2019 as well. I don't think viral was even around. And it just went off. And the biggest thing I took from that is that there are so many people out there that need something like this, that need something that is allowing them, again, permission to talk, permission to speak about their story or tell their story. And once identified, I thought, right, there's something in this. There's something, a bit more of an impact that we can make on this. And I want to be able to create something where we can create a charity, we can do all these sort of things, but what personal impact can we have on people? I don't want to be able to be having to do just something that covers everyone, because nobody's the same. No community is the same. Brisbane City is completely different to Ipswich, and Ipswich is completely different to Melbourne, and there needs to be catered things for different areas, different people, different communities, all these different things too. So that's where it all really started, and I sort of went heads down, ass up, and really got into it, and I fell in love with it pretty quick, and thought this is exactly why I went through all that stuff, to allow me to sort of focus on doing this work, and hopefully I can help one person, two people. I then covertly discovered that it was actually helping me with my mental health journey. You know, when I started to see people buying T-shirts or people messaging and saying, "Hey, we love this," I started to feel safer. I was like, "Oh my God, like this is good for me too. This is improving my mental health." So it was a win-win. So then we essentially just put everything I had into it, and we're almost 6 years now later, and we do presentations all over Australia, New Zealand. We're in Europe this year presenting as well, we've really shifted our focus to that preventative stage, using our conversation starters, being our T-shirts and stuff like that too, to ignite the conversation, but also trying to get into communities and challenge stigmas and challenge cultures as well, like alcohol, drugs, gambling, that have such a big effect on the suicide stats and numbers here, and really just trying to make an impact in Australian communities and with individuals and groups and different people and stuff like that too. So that's a very, very quick history of the last 6 years. I hope that sums it up. But yeah, I'm personally super passionate about essentially what I've been able to speak about the last hour of getting in and just destigmatizing this entire issue and opening up some conversations, giving people permission to speak, permission to tell their story, and permission to seek support.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So obviously, conversation starters, your physical products is shirts, you got caps and singlets and stuff like that, and then the other side of it is your presentations that you do. So, who are you presenting, or who will you present to? Who can you present to? And what does that look like?
Yeah, look, it's been an incredible last couple of years. We've been able to present to a lot of junior AFL and rugby league clubs, cricket clubs, soccer clubs, all sports in general, which has been really cool all over Australia. Mine sites to first responders. We've done a lot of first responder work in the CFS, MFB, the ADF as well, which was pretty cool. There's such a wide variety, a lot of corporate stuff as well, going to big companies and very, very high corporate structured companies and speaking to them around prevention, which has been something over the last 2 years that's really exploded, and it's which is a great thing to be able to reach that height. Even to primary schools, high schools. We went to a retirement village this year, which was really cool. And a really positive thing that came from that is that this retirement village, once we presented, firstly they were an amazing crowd, and the owner of the retirement village said that again, this isn't a dig at the other workshops, but they said we've tried to get other workshops here and no one's wanted to come because we're a retirement village, and that was something that we were really proud of. That again, it doesn't matter how old you are, this mental health thing can affect you, and
Doesn't discriminate.
It doesn't discriminate. And we had 80-year-old blokes there saying, I've struggled for 60 years, and 50 years ago, 10 years ago was finally I felt safe to talk about it, or 2 years ago I finally got permission to talk about it too. So that was an amazing experience. But look, some incredible presentations with some amazing people and such a vast variety. From retirement village to primary school students to football players to ADF personnel, to high-ranking CEOs and grade 5 kids that probably weren't listening, but they loved the Shaka, so they enjoyed it. But such a vast variety. But that's what we're really passionate about. Is not just saying we're just going to do this. If you're a retirement village, or if you're a group of 16-year-old blokes that just want to have the conversation, we'll come out, we'll do a presentation, we'll do a workshop, because anywhere you can get to have this conversation is going to have a positive effect. Yeah.
I always find it interesting too. You mentioned with the sporting organisations. I know the NRL highlighted a fair bit throughout the last few years about that depression and some of the players that have taken their life, and I've always wondered, these guys were playing top grade football in front of 30,000-40,000 people and getting paid good money. How possibly could they be struggling in their world? But I guess it's that performance level where you have to be at your best all the time, every day. And when that journey ends, I guess that's probably the hard part. Is that something that you experience with the sporting groups?
Huge thing, absolutely. And there's, I'm a Victorian, so I couldn't name one NRL player, but AFL especially, that's definitely my wheelhouse. But when we look at AFL players, we've had a lot of ex-AFL players that have, they've been in the league for 5-6 years. They've made $500,000 a year, sometimes more. And then something's happened. They've got injured, got delisted, and then all of a sudden they've lost their identity. They've lost a huge income.
Purpose.
They've a purpose, absolutely. Possibly they haven't really thought about setting themselves up financially. So they're, I've got a guy, I won't mention his name, but he played for Collingwood. I'm reasonably good mates with him, and he's like, 3 years ago, I couldn't walk down the street without someone taking a photo. He's like, now I work in a pub for, minimum wage, and nobody sort of knows who I am. And it's really hard. It's really tough. So we see that a lot, especially people in the media. You just look at some of the celebrities we've lost through suicide. Robin Williams, he's someone that I, grew up absolutely loving as a comedian. A lot of high-ranking, celebrities and these sorts of things too. So, and it just shows again that it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter that you've got all the money in the world. One of my closest friends, who him and I talk about his own mental health almost on a weekly basis. He runs one of the most successful businesses in Australia. He's got no issues financially. Probably won't for the rest of his life. But he's really struggling, and that just again shows that it doesn't matter. None of those things matter, and a lot of the time, as I did when I was in 1920, I'm like, right, if I just get really, really wealthy, this will go away.
I can buy
if I get a brand new car, this will go away. But it's not true. And if we can again normalise that, and we have a lot of issues when it comes to FIFO workers in that space, is saying, hey, it's okay to say, although I've got this and although I've got that, it doesn't mean that you can't also struggle and that you can talk about it. Because a lot of those blokes as well, when we look at it in reverse, a lot of those blokes are going to say, I don't want to go and seek support because someone's going to turn around and say, mate, you're on $400,000 a year. What are you complaining about? You play rugby league. You're famous. What do you mean you're struggling? There's no way you could struggle. And again, that's dangerous.
But you look at, I guess the FIFO workers who are away from their family, working all day, going back to a room 3x3, and probably having nothing else to do but think. And it would be a tough, but they're making lots of money, and like you say, but it doesn't always buy your happiness. And
absolutely. And there's been a big shift with. I was with a mine just a couple of weeks ago in Western Australia. And there's been a massive shift with people getting out of FIFO for purely mental health reasons. Nothing to do with the company itself or anything like that. It's just the
industry.
Yeah, the industry. They're 2 weeks away. They're this and that, and they're just saying, look, it's not worth the money. And that's right. Your mental health. That's one of the biggest things that we promote as well. Is that your mental health is more important than your financial status, than your. A lot of people are obsessed with having followers on Instagram and all that sort of stuff, and they put stress on themselves. Even body image, we're obsessed with. I want to get ripped. I want to look good, and this guy looks really, really good, or this girl looks really good. Why can't I look like that? Why can't I run that fast? All that sort of stuff too. And we put all that pressure on ourselves, and we sacrifice our mental health to try and chase that, and that's when everything just starts to cone in.
Yeah.
Once again, chasing things external to us and comparing ourselves to others. That footy player's making that much, or that FIFO worker's making that much, or they look like this. Like just that comparing your own experience and journey to someone else's.
Absolutely. Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy.
It's
And I-
dangerous.
and I think social media's had a big part to play in that. About
Yep.
the pressure on young kids growing up now is huge because
Massive.
of that image that they need to either maintain or
Yep.
or pretend that they have. And
Yep.
there's places now you go to just to sit. It's like a weekend away somewhere. You sit on a bench, an Instagram bench, and take
Yeah.
an Instagram photo or something.
Yeah. Yeah, look, it's, and again, this is something that, if we look back 15, 16 years ago, I remember MySpace. I don't know if you guys remember MySpace, but, that's all we had when I was growing up, and it was, 2 or 3 hours a night, and then you had to ask mum or dad to get off the phone to connect to dial up and all that fun stuff. And, even back then it was like, I've got to get home and get on MSN.
Yep.
And, we're now surprised that these kids are addicted. It's not their fault.
No, not at all.
They didn't. They grew up in a world where these little phone things are right there. Just like we grew up in a world where, we can almost look at it like I grew up with the idea that cars were normal. But if we go back 60, 70 years, people were like, "Oh my God, that person's got a car." That's certainly they must be very, very wealthy. That's the same thing with phones. These kids have grown up with iPads and phones and all that sort of stuff, and then we're yelling at them saying, "How dare you spend all your time on it?" No wonder. That's the only thing they've ever known. So
that's right. It's their life.
it's but there's so much pressure on them when it comes to body image, when it comes to expectations. The last week, I'm not too sure if it's up here in Queensland, but they've just done all the ATAR scores down in Victoria, and that's a really tough time for kids. And we put so much pressure on something that personally I don't think matters a whole lot. And there's kids that will quite literally, this will be the worst week of their life because
Haven't achieved.
they didn't get the score that they wanted to get. And we put so much pressure on these kids to firstly get everything right when us as adults have never got anything right. We put pressure on our kids, not to do certain things when, again, us as adults, we've made many mistakes. So that's our approach when it comes to the youth stuff is not going in there and saying, righto guys, get off your phones. It's going in there saying, right, what can we do on our phones that makes a positive impact? And you teach us, what about TikTok do you love? All right, I love this. Right, how can we use that to positively impact somebody's mental health or positively impact your mental health? As soon as we say, hey, get off your phones, they're going to see that big shiny red button like Homer Simpson, and then he just wants to press it. So it's we've got to work with them, not against them.
Yeah,
For sure.
100%. Because then they'll just push back even harder, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll just say, no, whatever you say not to do, I'm going to go and do that.
And that's exactly what I did. That's what I did as a kid, and you guys probably did it too. You're like, oh, parents said not to do it, so how can I do it?
100%.
It was a normal thing. So I think if we have that approach when it comes to these things, and just give them that, give them a little bit of empathy, and say, look, we don't understand the pressures that you're on, and we don't. We don't understand any of it. It's a completely different pressure. Doesn't mean that we never were under pressure, but it just means that the pressure that they're on now with social media, with all these different things they see, is completely different to what we were.
Yeah, and I think too, it was all relevant back in, my parents' pressure was totally different to me going to school's pressure because they didn't have to go to grade 12. Dad left school in grade 9, I think, started his apprenticeship, but it was different pressures, but it's all relevant to what's going on at the time.
Yeah, and they're adapting.
So for someone out there listening who goes through those thoughts, and what's your advice to them, whether it be, if you're talking to a forum or a one-on-one conversation, because I'm sure there will be people out there listening that have experienced similar feelings or thoughts that, we've discussed.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to say is that it's okay. And it's like, we see you. You're not losing it. You're not damaged. You're not broken. It's something that a lot of us think when we experience that everybody else around me is doing fine, but I'm so broken. And sometimes it's really nice to hear that, not that somebody else is struggling, but it's nice to hear that what you're experiencing is something that's real. So that would be the first thing I'm saying. I'd be saying is that it's okay to feel how you're feeling. It's scary, it's hard, it's tough. It may get worse, it may get better. But there is support. There's support out there. And the bravest thing that we can all do is to have that acknowledgement for ourselves first. Often people say the bravest thing we can do is speak, and that is absolutely brave. But I think the braver thing to do is for you to say to yourself, right, I need some help. I need to go and talk to someone. That's the first bit of bravery, and then speaking to someone or seeking some sort of support is the second bit.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good advice.
If someone out there is listening wants to engage with the Shaka Project, whether that be, donate or get you guys out to the workplace, what's the different channels or the best way to sort of get in
so
touch?
probably through the social media. So that's where we're probably biggest on. So Instagram and Facebook, and it's just the Shaka Project, SHAKA. A lot of people chuck a C in there. SHAKA Project. Jump on there and there's all our information straight through our website.
And that's the same even for, say, like a manager or a leader in the workplace that wants to get in touch? Just
all through that, all through the website, all through the links on the Instagram bio. That goes through all the information about our workshops and everything that we can do.
Yeah, awesome. Happy days.
Yeah, I think having talking to you today, I think the fascination for me is that your pathway was almost created for you, where you had that father figure that was brave enough to sit down with you in the early age and open up his feelings, and then allowed you to, have those feelings and go, you know what, I've got to fix this, or it's not as scary as it seemed, or that open conversation back then is quite brave. I think, even though you've even admitted to us on today's show that you had those struggles and dark sort of thoughts, but you had the tools, I guess, to get around that. And like we said before, let's make no mistake, it's hard work to get to where you are now, and but mate, it's an absolute. I think the people out there that have experienced your forums and or have listened to you on podcasts, whatever, is going to get something out of it. And we talked about this before the show, is we've just got to get momentum on this. And I think the fact that you're selling a crap load of T-shirts is the fact that there's so scary part to that is there's so many people in that, but there's so many people willing to go, that shirt's almost like a, you don't have to speak. Sometimes it's, I got this on, this is my Superman jacket, and so that's amazing, mate. I really applaud you for what you're doing. It's fantastic.
Thank you, mate. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on today.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome conversation, awesome chat. And
really
just
good.
to back up what Jando said, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people take something out of your story and what you're doing.
Hope so.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Good on you. Thanks, Shaun.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please show your support by subscribing, liking and rating the podcast on your listening and social media platforms. We are always looking to improve what we do. If you have feedback, suggestions for further guests, topics, or would like to be a guest yourself, please contact us via Instagram.
Stop the scene.